Good morning. We'll call this Wednesday morning, April 14th, 2021 meeting of the Criminal Justice Committee.
Microphone.
Redo. Good morning. We'll call the Wednesday, April 14th, 2021 meeting of the Criminal Justice meeting to order. We'll start with roll call, please.
Mr. Hess?
Present.
Mr. Long?
Present.
Mr. Lear?
Present.
Mr. Snipes? Ms. Peters?
Present.
Ms. Parker? Present. Mr. Fairfield?
Present.
Mr. Carrico?
Present.
Mr. Eckhoff?
Present.
Mr. Daryl Smith?
Present.
Mr. Swanson? Mr. Kirkstra?
Present.
Mr. Hunter?
Present.
Mr. Collins?
Present.
Mr. Kenneth Smith?
Present.
Mr. Wheeler?
Present.
Mr. Seroy? We have a quorum.
I have not received any public comment. Is there any public comment at this time? Any public comment? Seeing none, we'll move on. I'd like to get a motion to approve the minutes and all the reports from the Circuit Clerk's Office, State's Attorney, Public Defender, Probation, Sheriff, and the Coroner's Office. Mr. Fairfield, second by Mr. Long. We'll take that vote at the end after all the reports are given. So, moving on to Chief Judge, not here. Up next, Circuit Clerk, Ms. Cianci.
Good morning, everybody. As you can see with the reports this month, we were really busy. The one report, the disbursement report, we processed over $500,000 this month. So I haven't seen that number in many, many, many months. So that's a really good thing. The Harris & Harris recovery report that I have, and in conjunction with the Illinois Local Debt Recovery Program, if you see this month, March of 2021 is the largest amount of money we've collected in 1 month ever to date. The largest month that we had was May of 2015, where we collected $282,000. And that was when we started the local debt recovery program with the Illinois State Comptroller. So it's been a really good month for us. We've collected $10 million since 2011, so that's a good thing. And then on the state's attorney's collection report, they had a huge month as well with $63,624.12. Their next largest recovery month was June of 2020. So they've just tipped over the $500,000 mark since February of 2017. So things are moving right along. Are there any questions?
Any questions for Sandy? Don't see any questions. Got anything else for us?
Nope, that's it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Up next, Mr. Rose, State's Attorney.
Morning, everyone.
Morning, Jim.
Morning. In your packet, you should have the report of grand jury indictments as well as the grand jury stats report. You can see we had 58 true bills at the April 8th. Grand jury brings us up to 342 for the year. It's a lot. There's no other way to say it. That's a lot of cases. 58 in one grand jury is a whole lot. So some of this is backlog. Some of these are new cases. Unfortunately, felony domestic batteries continue to lead the pack among crimes against the person, crimes of violence.
Jim, can you get any more volume?
I don't think so. I'm sorry. Can you not hear me?
You guys hear him now?
Better.
It's better.
Okay. Did anyone have any questions? I was just saying there was 58 true bills returned at the last grand jury, brings us up to 342 for the year, which is a very large number. And felony domestic still lead the pack as far as crimes against people, violent crimes.
Mr. Hunter.
Jim, good morning. How are you, sir?
Good morning.
Good. Got a question, and I think you may have some ancillary involvement. 2020, 80% of the murders in the county transpired in the city of Kankakee. Would you be willing, or are you involved in any of the initiatives with ATF, state police, DEA, the county, and Kankakee City in terms of rat packs?
We would not be involved in anything like that. That's really a law enforcement decision that they would make at their level to determine how they're going to enforce, if they're going to increase patrols, you know, size of patrols, change shifts. That's law enforcement. We try to stay in our lane with that stuff. And when they send the cases up to us, we're happy to review them for charges.
But let me pose this question to you, and you know, I'm not a neophyte when it comes to this stuff, but you know, you prosecute the bad guys, right?
Correct.
Okay, and I would assume that you would be able to identify the bad guys and that they would be the targets of DEA, ATF, state police, etc. That's all I'm saying. I'm sure that you would be consulting with these entities in terms of identifying the bad guys.
Correct. So every week there's a law enforcement meeting at the City of Kankakee Police Department.
Every Monday?
Every Monday. Most of the agencies are represented there, and those are the type of discussions we have.
That's what I'm saying. So one, a continuation of that. I'm sure that it'll be enhanced now, new generation, administration. Tell us, and I'm going to shut up after this, tell us about the restorative justice initiative that you're involved in.
You know, it's going well. We just we got another grant from the Illinois State Board of Education. It's about, I think, $155,000, and that's to get court-involved youth, opportunity youth, which is kind of a term that has replaced at risk. It's to get basically kids in our county who need help into programs during the after-school hours when they're most likely to be at risk of either becoming a victim of violence or an offender of violence. So it's a little bit different for an office, the state attorney's office, to lead something like that. But I think we're well positioned. Between our restorative justice coordinator, some of the reforms we're making with juvenile justice, we have great relationships with probation, juvenile probation. Tom, Latham, Grace, Evan have been great in their work on that, supporting the mentoring program. I worked with Ed Pennewick through the Public Defender's Office. If Ed and his staff were not cooperative through juvenile court, because they could really put up that kind of that steel curtain and say, we're not cooperating with the state. They haven't done that. So we've been able to work with some of the juveniles in juvenile court, thanks to Judge Drew as well, to get kids into these programs. So I think it's an extension of what we've been doing, and it really bridges that gap during those most important hours.
Thank you, sir. Keep up the good work.
Any other questions for Mr. Rowe? Anything else, Jim?
No, thank you, everyone. Have a good week.
Okay, thank you. Up next, we have Mr. Pennewick, the Public Defender's Office.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning, Ed.
Report basically speaks for itself. I've really not got anything specific to comment regarding that today. I'm obviously happy to answer any questions. I know Mr. Hunter, of course, meant alleged bad guys, and you know, but I'm being facetious, of course. But you know, as Mr. Rowe stated, you know, we all have common goals. Ultimately, it's just a question of how we get there. So, you know, the program he talked about with the juvenile court is beneficial to the minors, you know, and ultimately the community. So, yeah, obviously we're for that. We're all for that. So, I appreciate Mr. Rowe spearheading that. But other than that, I have nothing more to comment regarding my report. But do we have any questions?
Any questions for Mr. Pennewick? Nothing? Okay. Thanks, Ed.
Thank you.
Up next, Mr. Latham, probation. Morning.
Good morning. I have nothing to add to the report unless there's any questions. It's pretty straightforward this month.
Any questions on Mr. Latham's report? else, sir?
Just a couple things, like when COVID started, so about a year ago, we ran into a problem with getting GPS devices. There was a shortage. We're running into that same problem right now. Obviously, they're being used a lot more during this time period, which that kind of leveled off, but now trying to get them shipped to you is taking much longer. So we're constantly working with the vendor to always have one ready or a couple on the shelf to be used, but if you get more than 2 on the shelf, they want you sending them back because they're using them somewhere else and making that money. So we'll continue to work that problem, but it's just going to be that way until this kind of levels, this COVID levels off, goes back to normal. Also, the only other thing I want to discuss is I'm a Supreme Court Advisory Board member, and that board reached out to all the members asking if they could find representatives from the county board and administration to speak to the pretrial task force regarding the changes with the legislation we're going through and the impact that's going to have on counties, operational and procedural wise. So I reached out to Chairman Wheeler and Anita. They both accepted quickly. So that letter was sent off, and we'll find out soon if they're part of that group, which I think it will be, to speak to the administration, the Supreme Court task force regarding the impact that's going to have. So I think it's a good thing. It's a way to get our local issues explained and across to the Supreme Court, and how it relates to funding going on the road and things like that. We'll find out later, but I think I was happy that the chairman and Anita agreed to do that. So we'll know soon when that is and everything. So
Good.
that's all I have.
Questions for Mr. Latham?
You want to address my question I had earlier?
With the regarding interns, yeah, we have we just started that back up. Obviously, it was suspended during the COVID, but we do have 2 lined up for the summer, along with other smaller, shorter job shadow type things, so people coming in. So we're getting that back up and running. I think in the summer we have one scheduled for our juvenile and adult division. So
Great. Anything else for Mr. Latham?
all right.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Up next, the sheriff. Mr. Downing. We timed that just perfectly.
Have time to gather myself.
You only brought 1 coffee, huh?
I did. Sorry.
I don't drink it anyway.
All right. Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you. Let's see. You have your monthly report. A couple things to note. If you look at our average revenue per day, December through March of 2020 were pre-COVID numbers, and April 20th through today are post-COVID numbers. And as you can see, it looks like we're right around $6,000 to $7,000 less per day, just because we haven't taken a lot of new ones. We've obviously been dealing with COVID. But since COVID started, we literally, whoever they took out wasn't replaced. And that was a decision that we made, obviously, for COVID reasons. And the numbers were a little bit down anyway for different reasons. But however, those numbers are starting to trend back up a little bit. So that's a positive thing, I guess. Our transports, we have increased medical transports and limited transports for the feds and ICE. In fact, we've only gone up to Chicago for ICE once, and we've gone to Chicago for the marshals 5 times. And that's strictly, they're doing a lot of things by video, which is a plus. It limits the transports. And our transports to the courthouse are increasing as the courts start getting back to some semblance of normal. And our juvenile transports have increased And I don't know, Tom, if you can touch on that, if how many we have in custody or what we're doing. I know there's some in custody, yeah.
I would say the bigger issue with all those transports is there's a lot of juveniles charged as adults. So they're in custody a lot, and we're probably about the highest amount we've had in custody for juveniles charged as adults. So they have a lot more court appearances. They're just in custody much longer. The process takes longer. So I think that's the biggest part of it. So.
Thank you.
On the sworn side, all the numbers are fairly consistent. Unfortunately, we have had 2 fatals so far in 2021. Questions on the report?
You sort of skipped over the Department of Corrections to prison and then release.
Yeah, I actually have a little bit more information down at the end.
Okay.
That I'll address with the Department of Corrections.
Okay. Any questions on this report?
I think what's the second bid opening?
You want to do the bid opening?
We can. I have 2. I received 2, which
Okay.
was.
Well, I need a motion to open the bids by Ms. Parker, second by Mr. Long. That'd be a roll call.
Mr. Hess,
Aye.
Mr. Long,
Aye.
Mr. Lear,
Aye.
Ms. Peters,
Aye.
Ms. Parker, Mr. Fairfield, Mr. Carrico,
Aye.
Mr. Eckhoff,
Aye.
Mr. Dale Smith,
Aye.
Mr. Kirkstra, Mr. Hunter, Mr. Collins,
Aye.
Mr. Kenneth Smith,
Aye.
Mr. Wheeler. Motion carries.
Okay.
A couple things. When we got the quotes, from, I think we got 3 quotes. We sent those bid specs out to those 3. Only one of those 3 sent us a bid, which was a little bit surprising. It was published in the Daily Journal, as we're required to do on April the 3rd, which was the Saturday weekend edition. I don't know if it was in there or not. I don't get the paper, so somebody can confirm that. Assuming it was, we got billed for it. So, and with the quotes, we quoted just what we would need to mix and match, if you will. So one company we have some in-car computers that are one company. We have some in-car computers that are another company as we've moved forward and things have changed. And so with the body cameras, we asked the bidders to bid everything. Now, we can still go back and take and mix and match if we choose to, or we can try and make everything one so that everything's compatible. We don't have to worry about, because obviously one of the concerns is if something malfunctions under this legislation and this new legislation, our officers could potentially be charged with a Class 3 felony. So I think to safeguard our staff from that equipment not working correctly because it's different manufacturers, that we go with the same type of system, so our same company. So that's how these are bidded out. We still have the option to piecemeal it if we choose to. So. First one is a company called Midwest Public Safety. Thank God there's a lot of pictures.
Where are they located?
I believe they are in Decatur, Illinois, Mr. Hunter, but I will confirm that. Yes, I got their, yeah, actually I turned right to the thing here. Yeah, Decatur, Illinois. I just want to make sure I don't miss anything. These are all. Obviously, the amount of information in these, we're not going to make a decision. I think what I would suggest is once we open these that we move this to finance. Is that probably the right way to do it? I have a
I think
grand,
we'll take a motion to accept the lowest, most responsible,
yeah, that's, yeah.
and then
that's-
move it to
yeah,
finance.
That's fine.
Is that correct, Chairman?
I have a bid for in-car video, and the total is $231,958. And then the body worn cameras are $86,690. So I would think that's about 320,000.
Close.
Doing it in my head.
Yeah.
And I can't take my shoes off. Mr. Wheeler has a question.
Mr. Wheeler?
Thank you. Is the first number, that 231, inclusive of the back end, the cloud, the if you will, the storage area or the service?
That's the way the bid specs were presented.
So the first number is that all included, and then
Yes.
it's just cameras alone. The second.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, the other thing to keep in mind, and the reason that, I mean, some may complain that they only had 2 weeks to do this, but the bottom line is we have to get our camera price in to the state of Illinois so that we are eligible for a grant to cover those cameras. So what I'm telling you here price-wise, there is going to be some grant money that will cover some of it. But we have to get it in by, I think, like May 15th. So going into May, I don't believe we would have been able to do that. Or if we'd have waited till May and then so,
Finance would have been after the 15th.
right, correct.
So
Yep. So keep that in mind too as we go over these prices. The cameras themselves should be paid for through a grant. The second,
you were close, 318, by the way.
yeah, did I say 320?
Yeah.
Wow, that's pretty good for me. Okay, this is from Racers Tech LLC. And I'll see where they're from, Mr. Hunter. Beloit, Kansas. I'm sorry? Yeah. Well, there we go. So this looks like it is this doesn't seem to have, this is a dock and this is the in-car computers, but it doesn't appear to have body-worn cameras on it, which kind of defeats the purpose. But the number on here, the quote total, is $131,040, but it doesn't appear to have body-worn cameras on it. So, but we will obviously take a look at it and have our IT department go through it and make sure we're getting what we need. And then we'll come back to finance.
Okay, I would entertain a motion to, after review, accept the lowest, most responsible bidder.
Eckhoff.
Mr. Eckhoff, Mr. Hunter with a second. All in favor? Oh, that's gotta be a roll call vote.
Mr. Hess?
Aye.
Mr. Long? Aye. Mr. Lear? Aye. Mr. Snipes?
Aye.
Ms. Peters?
Aye.
Ms. Parker? Aye. Mr. Fairfield?
Aye.
Mr. Carrico?
Aye.
Mr. Eckhoff?
Aye.
Mr. Daryl Smith.
Aye.
Mr. Kirkstra.
Aye.
Mr. Hunter. Mr. Collins.
Aye.
Mr. Kenneth Smith. Mr. Smith, you're on mute.
Just vote,
Aye.
just
Mr.
vote for
Wheeler.
him, Daryl.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay.
One thing to add,
Do we need a motion now to move this on to finance, or just,
That wasn't, I thought that was part of the motion, I'm sorry.
did I say it? Okay,
we can go back and review the
yeah,
tape if you want.
we'll have to. Oh, go ahead. sir.
Yeah, one additional thing about the body cameras, the body worn cameras last, I believe it was the finance committee meeting that Mr. Smith from Salina requested that we reach out to the smaller departments to see if they would have any interest, and we did do that, and we did have some interest from a couple of the smaller departments, and so we are working with them to get them incorporated as part of this price. So we did reach out to them, so that was a good suggestion. Yep.
Are you gonna have extra cameras that you're gonna put in an inventory? in case
I
you
think
have
we're
some?
gonna have one or two in case they go down, but yeah, we will have a couple extra.
Okay. Any questions or anything about Mr. Snipes?
About that report or questions? I have one question, and I just, it was brought to my attention, and I did not know, and I don't know if you have that answer as well, but the area in Pembroke, I know with this, this windfall of dollars is coming into the area, there was questions asked to, is there any way they can probably get some policing in that area through those dollars or whatever to start?
Well, that's going to be a COVID question, and what I would say to that, Mr. Snipes, is that if you recall, we got two grants, or we had a grant for two SROs, school resource officers, and Lorenzo Smith declined it. That would have given them a police officer out in the Hopkins Park area who, while he would have been the school resource officer, he would have been able to respond to any issues going on out there if we didn't have another car there. So we are trying. And if you can convince their school board that having an SRO out there would be a good idea, I've tried, and I've met with a couple different school board members, and this, of course, I coach baseball out there, so I have a good relationship with the superintendent, and we'd be thrilled to have a deputy out there basically every day that there's school. And so if any contacts or anything you can do to convince them that would be an asset, that would be greatly appreciated.
Okay, they didn't share that with us. Thank you.
Ms. Parker?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sheriff, what is their reasoning? What is their argument not to have an officer at the school? I think that they would appreciate to have that.
Well, I think there's I think two things. I think number one, the timing of it all at that point was the whole George Floyd issue going on.
Okay.
So that was out there. Some, and I think it was even referenced in the email that Dr. Alexander sent me about different school districts, although the only one I know at this point was Chicago, who was really fighting to say we don't want the cops in our schools. So I think that was kind of the mentality back then.
Wow.
And believe me, I have said, I think there's, the misinformation out there about school resource officers simply this. They're not out there, there's a mentality that if you have a police officer at your school, that your school's unsafe. And that's not what SROs are about.
No.
But unfortunately, that's the mentality. of some. You know, we have our school resource officer out at the Career Center has worked out very well and has done a great job. And of course, they have, I believe, 16 or 17 high schools that encompass not only Kankakee County, but part of Will and part of Iroquois. And so they have high school kids from all of those areas. And, you know, we didn't put one out there because they felt they needed one for safety and security. They have, you know, a big, wide variety of students, and we are able to touch all of them in ways, educational ways. And he's put on programs. He's actually put on a program that's been very good. I have the PowerPoint that he presented, and we're actually working on getting it out to all the schools about what to do during a traffic stop. Simple stuff that people don't think about. And while it's required, right now, I think it's the law in Illinois that your driver's ed program should be or is required to teach, but, and no offense to driver's ed teachers, but what are they going to be teaching these kids about a traffic stop?
Nothing.
It should be done by a law enforcement person. And so I've reached out to Dr. Murphy. He's reaching out to the superintendents, and we are trying to get that in the schools as part of an educational process as well. So,
Mr. Hunter?
Mr. Chairman, to piggyback on that, Sheriff Downey, you and I have a mutual friend of Theodis Pace, and Tinker, you know, there have been a lot of different initiatives in terms of, you know, what happens when 5-0 stops you. Theodis Pace was I guess like a community liaison person, and there was a program they had like Donuts for Dads, and they had, especially, you know, men rarely go to the schools. So anyway, there were grandfathers, uncles, grandfathers, you know, dads and all that stuff. And they'd have them there, and some of the programming was, what do you do when you stop by the cops? You know, the do's and don'ts and so forth. There are a lot of other initiatives which are done as well too, which have been assets in terms of teaching our kids, especially kids who look like me, and Snipes, in terms of what transpires when the cops stop you. And we did some role playing as well too. Really good stuff. So I think that's very important. And what the sheriff says is correct. And it gives you a different perspective in terms of, you know, people telling you what to do in light of George Floyd, all this other stuff that's going on now. So, and it's very timely. It's you know, reared its ugly head again, but I think it's, you know, necessary that we continue to provide information, because there's so much misinformation out there about, you know, cops and all that stuff. And I think we, as a county board, were ahead of the game by passing a resolution supporting law enforcement and not the abolition of the police, so to speak. So yeah, that's an ongoing trial and tribulations in terms of informing people, especially people of color, about do's and don'ts.
Mr. Wheeler?
Just for the sheriff, do SROs, like as a matter of policy, are they not allowed to have cameras, or should they not have cameras? I'm just curious about that.
I don't believe they have them on when they're out there, unless something happens.
Okay.
But of course, we don't have cameras yet, so we don't have a policy on it.
As a common,
Yeah, I don't know what I honestly don't, at this point, don't know what, I'm guessing, just an educated guess would say no, they don't wear them throughout the day.
Okay.
Unless there's some sort of altercation,
Then they turn them on.
fight, yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
If they have the time.
Yeah, right.
Mr. Snipes?
There's one other, I find it somewhat disheartening because it does two things with the SRO. One is it's a safety, it's a safety plus to have them there, but also it gives the students opportunity to, and the police, to relationship build. that's basically what happens when they're in the school, at least with ISROs. It gives them, they get a chance to talk with them, and then they're like norm, and that gives them the opportunity to go in and just, if there's a problem with something, they'll quickly talk to someone that they're familiarized with. So in that case, that's why I would have probably supported the SRO. When I was a kid, I know it doesn't, a few years back, I was born in the projects of the Robert Taylor Homes in Chicago. And when the gangs initiated, which was the Cobra Stones at that time, they initiated the gangs. It was something I didn't like to do because it just wasn't my style. But eventually, I was able to come out of that through a cousin that didn't allow me to have to engage in that. But they had a program called the Junior Police. And they gave us a little card, and it was a little card on the inside, a little kind of like thing that had the badge on the outside and on the folder and thing. So I thought that was the greatest thing in the world when we went to the junior police thing or whatever. The only thing that that I would have cautioned myself back then was I went to go and arrest the Cobra Stones and those Black Panthers and Black Peace Stones with my junior police card. Suffice it to say, I had to run. But other than that, I think it's a good relationship building. I wish there was a program that kind of brings that back into the school or wherever, because that led me to go to the Boy Scouts. So just letting you know that there is some positives that can come out of that.
Well, and to give you a quick example, the last deputy that we hired was somebody who went through Kankakee High School, who one of their SROs knew, and we were able to, as part of our background, talk to another police officer to say, hey, how's this kid? And he got a glowing recommendation, and he's a sharp kid, great kid, and we're glad we have him. And so, yeah, and I don't know if what that SRO did with that student, wanted, the reason he wanted to become a police officer, but, it's certainly a benefit to all of us. Yep.
It's just another form of mentoring as far as
Right.
I'm concerned.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. You all right with that, or should we go on with the?
I'm good. The next
Claim.
one, claim recommended or not recommended. So I think you have in your packet, I don't know if, did you send him the email too?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes, the
so
email's there.
we received an email back on March 23rd, and some of you saw it. And I guess, if you have to qualify something with, we're not accusing you of doing anything wrong, then you're probably accusing you of doing something wrong. And all this would have taken was a quick phone call. The incident, this is the narrative that is printed out from CANCOM, which I don't believe you guys have.
No.
But basically, we got a report, the Illinois State Police had a report of a stolen semi going down Interstate 57. And we had a car that was in the area that got on the interstate to follow that truck or semi. There was an arrest in that case, and it happened in Iroquois County. And our deputy followed him down to Iroquois County before he had a flat tire.
Mr. Hunter.
Motion to approve.
Well, it's finance will have to approve it, but I just want to give this committee a heads up that, listen, we have every right to go into Iroquois County. Our deputy doesn't live in Iroquois County. He lives in Kankakee County. That is required by the FOP contract, that our deputies live in the county. And those are questions that are asked here, and it's, like I said, it could have been handled, instead of taking up probably a half an hour of the auditor's time to type the email, and then for us to go look into it, it probably costs more than $130 that it costs to fix the flat tire. But I just want to make the board aware of what we're dealing with. And I understand all about looking into fraud or anybody trying to get one over, but things could have been handled by a quick 30-second phone call.
Mr. Hunter.
Yeah, so that you don't need
No.
any further action.
It'll go to
finance.
It'll go to finance.
My mistake then.
I
Thank you.
appreciate it. No. Animal control update. Things are going very well at animal control. Carrie Laird and the staff over there are doing a great job. We have kind of waited for elections in different municipalities to be done, and so they are done. And so we will proceed with trying to contract with the Village of Bradley, the City of Kankakee, and then move on from there. And I don't know, Ms. Parker, if you want to talk about the signage that, the foul signage or the wild, yeah.
Yes, it was approved and it's still at the printer manufacturing, and those signs will be delivered, and then we will work with the park districts that have approved it, and we're going to get those out, especially now that the ground is softer. We have volunteers that will do it. All we need is permission as where to place them. So thanks again to the Sheriff's Office and the State's Attorney's Office, County Board, Illinois Department of Resources, everyone for supporting this particular project. We're real proud of it, and it's going to be very helpful not only for the animals but for littering in the park by leaving garbage and food that rots. So I think it's going to be a win-win for all of us. So thank you, Sheriff, very much. I wish you were here at the Community Services meeting last month, that we thanked you
No, thank you.
so much for that, for helping us.
Well, that's all I have on the agenda. I got a few more things to cover. If,
Any questions on what we have covered so far? Go ahead.
So, the week after Easter Sunday, Nakamoto, which is the company that does the inspections for ICE, came in, did a 3-day inspection. And obviously we've been doing this since 2016 as far as the inspections. We get inspected by Nakamoto twice a year, every 6 months. And we also get inspected by the Office of Detention Oversight, which is ODO is their acronym or whatever you want to call it. But Nakamoto was here. The only finding we had, which we have every time, is no outdoor rec, which everybody knows. However, those that are in ICE custody do have the right, after 6 months, to request a move to a place where there is outdoor rec. And as far as I know, we've not got any requests, but they're very limited in the number of county jails that actually do have outdoor rec. But I can tell you that we are, and I know I brought this up before, as far as trying to look for some pricing and things like that to possibly have some in one way or another. COVID kind of put a halt to all that, so we're going to kind of start that back up again to see if we can't come up with some sort of outdoor rec area that would not only benefit ICE, but would also benefit our U.S. Marshal inmates as well as our local inmates as well. So we will work on that.
Mr. Wheeler.
Just for the committee's knowledge and the sheriff, that is on the, I'll call it the big board for potential uses of COVID money, because we knew that there is an application for, you know, COVID, but there's also if we're getting reimbursed for lost revenue. So as far as getting bids and things like that, it would be appropriate, so we know if we decide to fund it on a county board level, what that number would be. So it's just, I've got, from everybody's ideas, I'm just putting them down on different categories, and that was one of them. So.
I haven't given you a report on this in probably a year, I guess, but if you recall, I know Bob's here and he's probably still a little steamed about it, but we did steal an employee from Bob a few years ago, and Katie does all of our medical billing, and I'm telling you, the amount of money that she has saved this county over the course of since she started with us in May of 2018 is unbelievable. You know, medical billing is so confusing, and if you don't know the codes you're looking at, what you're looking for, and all this other stuff, you know, people are just going to pay whatever the bill says, and she does a great job in getting our bills reduced. And I can tell you that our expenses, our medical expenses through December of 2020 through March of 2021 our expenses were $75,231. Our savings, because she went through and had things recoded and had things changed and prices changed, she saved $35,718 in 3 months. And so the amount we actually paid was $39,512. And over the course of the time from May 18th to March 31st, she has saved us $344,953 in medical bills. So credit to her. Thank you, Bob. We appreciate it. Questions on that? A vaccine update. We thought we were doing really well with giving the Johnson & Johnson vaccine because it was a one-shot deal, and so if somebody left our custody, we didn't have to worry about them getting the second shot. And then, as most of you, I'm sure, are aware, they stopped, or they put a pause on the Johnson & Johnson yesterday. So last week we did inoculate 124 inmates. We had probably another 40 or so that we were going to do yesterday, but when that came out yesterday morning, we put a pause on it. So we did start the vaccine process. If they don't restart the Johnson & Johnson anytime soon, we will probably look at the potential for Moderna or Pfizer. But we're hoping that they start up, John. I mean, the numbers, I don't know if for those of you that look into that, yeah, there's 4 or 5 people that have had blood clots out of 6 million.
Yeah.
6,700,000.
Yeah.
Mr. Lear.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I assume the vast majority of those individuals that got vaccinated were males. The reports I've heard is only females that are having this side effect.
You know what? That's a great, and here's what's funny. I had it broken down by race.
Oh.
I didn't have it broken down by sex. So now we only have, I want to say, I can tell you that we have 1, 3. I think we only have about 7 or 8 females.
Sorry about that.
But I don't know. I'll be honest with you. I don't know if any females got the vaccine, to tell you the truth. So I can't answer that. I'm guessing no, but don't know. So I apologize for that. Thought I had it. I thought I was ahead of the game here. Okay, to Mr. Hess's question on Department of Corrections. We currently have 33 waiting to be transferred to the Illinois Department of Corrections. The lawsuit that the sheriffs filed against the state of Illinois and Governor Pritzker, we dropped it, hoping that we can move forward. So I resent the bill because I knew I wouldn't get the response of I can't talk to you because there's pending litigation, because there's not pending litigation now. So I've not heard anything. So not surprising. So the $284,000 bill from March to July includes medical, so any medical costs that we have. With the other inmates from August 1st to March 31st, there were 7,609 total days of housing after these guys have been sentenced. Now, in our daily rate, which we charge the marshals and ICE at $90, that's $684,810. So when you add the 284, you're talking almost $1 million of housing that right now our local taxpayers have shouldered that cost. And that does not include medical. Now, the biggest issue in all this is liability. We've had one of these individuals who's been in our custody since December, who is still in our custody and has not been transferred to the Illinois Department of Corrections. And the problem with that is the liability. If something happens to that individual while he's in our custody, regardless of if he's been sentenced or not, falls on the county. So I have had a couple conversations with people down in Springfield with DOC. I haven't got to the top guy yet, Acting Director Rob Jeffries. He won't call me back. He always has somebody else call me back. But they know my position. They know our frustration. And I get COVID. I get, you know, that because believe me, we all fought through it. I mean, and actually while we're on COVID, we are COVID free at both jails right now. So knock on wood, let's hopefully keep it that way. I get that everybody's dealing with COVID, but this burden that has been laid on our local taxpayers is significant. And as the sheriffs, I know we all are contacting Springfield, we're all contacting our legislators. It would actually help if you as county board members would do the same, because this is affecting our local general fund. So I will forward you the number if you choose to call. I would appreciate it. I think they need to hear from more than just the sheriffs, because quite frankly, I don't think they like the sheriffs, because we don't, you know, we want to get things done and they don't want to work with us. So so I will send that out to Kelly and have her forward it out to the group. The other issue is we've had 5 individuals in the last 3 weeks who have served more time than what their out date would have been had they been transferred to the Illinois Department of Corrections. That is a blatant violation of their civil rights. So I don't know if these individuals know that. I mean, we've been upfront with them saying, hey, your out date's here, but you have to go to DOC first. We can't release you from our facility. Now, DOC, once we notify DOC, all of a sudden DOC takes those guys. So they're only taking the ones that have served their time. So they go down to DOC, they go down to the intake center in Stateville, they walk in, they get processed, and they walk out. So it's still not costing DOC anything other than processing them. So I think we're...
Sheriff, can I speak to that, Sheriff, briefly?
Sure.
I just want to kind of dovetail what the sheriff's saying. I've got a list of all the people who are sentenced to prison, not all the people, but the people who should be near the completion of their sentence. I've been reaching out to DOC and have gotten a little bit of traction. More importantly, the corrections, local corrections, county corrections, Amanda's been doing a very good job prioritizing them, reaching out to the Department of Corrections to make sure that the people who should be released are released. So I just want to get shout out to the Sheriff's Department, because they are following through on this. They're not just sitting on their hands. They're actually being very proactive on this issue. So that's what I wanted to say, Sheriff.
Well, thank you. And again, nobody wants to, you know, here's the deal. You got sentenced, whatever you got sentenced for, whatever you did, you got sentenced to that time. When your time is up, your time should be up. That's the way it should be. And so if you're being housed longer than what that outdate says, that's a problem. That's a huge problem.
I talk inside baseball, but traditionally inmates get an additional 6 months credit on longer sentences, 3-year sentences, 4-year sentences. And I think that's being affected by this also. So I think the inmates, although many of them are being sentenced with, or doing the time that is consistent with their sentence, realistically, if it wasn't COVID and if they were transported to Joliet, they would have gotten additional time also. So it is a bad situation.
Right, no question. Thank you.
Thank you.
And then 2 more things. Mr. Hunter asked at the Finance Committee meeting about our trailer bill that is following 3653. These are bullet points of what we are trying to address, and I say we, law enforcement. There's a coalition between the Sheriff's Association, the Illinois Association of Chiefs of Police, and the FOP, and that coalition has worked on a number of things to address, and they're not, I mean, they're just bullet points, so they're not really, I've been told not to share them yet until they file the, well, they got to file the, they want to file it. So I'll respect that, but they're basically changes that we've talked about in here. They do want to, one of the things that I will talk about is they are requesting that 2 things, that the body cameras be pushed out a year. So if, like for us, we technically don't have to have body cameras till January 2023. If they agree to this, or if this gets passed, it would be January 2024. So that's one thing. And then the other thing is, with all the training that's required and some of these things going into effect on July 1st, we're asking that they move that date back from July 1st to January 1st because you can't get 35,000 police officers in the state of Illinois trained in less than 2 months for what they're asking for. So those are two of the things on here. The rest of it is a lot of language, a lot of cleanup, and some of the things that we're addressing, some of those unintended consequences that I think the governor spoke to, I think Representative Slaughter spoke to, I think Senator Sims spoke to, those unintended consequences that are out there. So, Mr. Hunter.
Mr. Hunter.
Mr. Chairman, how about cashless bail?
That will be addressed. I don't believe it's addressed in these changes because it doesn't take effect till 2023.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, if I might, Mr. Chairman, have you talked to Senator Sims about that? I know you've had an audience with him, and I know you have too, Sheriff Downey.
My audience was prior to.
Yeah, the day before.
My house.
Yeah.
My audience with him was.
Once you go there,
it was when it was House Bill 163.
Yeah.
So
that, yeah.
I have had a conversation with the senator. It was a very good one, actually. We talked about a number of things, but this, he made a comment like there's more to come. Didn't really specify what that meant, but he said stay tuned. He listened to my concerns about, the policing part of the bill, and then I said, but I'm leaving that to the Sheriff's Association. That's not something that I'm trying to bog myself down with. Others on the board are concerned with it. We're really taking a deep dive into the numbers on what it's going to do to our court system. And I said, once I get that number, I'm going to get back to you. And he said, well, stay tuned, and there's more to come on that issue. So I don't know what that means, but it wasn't a negative call by any means.
right, and to his credit, I mean, they are willing to, sit down and talk about these things as they even referenced in some of their press conference, the unintended consequences.
Right.
So credit to them for being willing to sit down and negotiate it. So,
if I could, Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
it dovetails off of the question that Steve threw to me. At Executive Committee, we're going to be going through some of these legislative initiatives, and it really goes to Sandy and State's Attorney, Public Defender, anybody else who has a horse in the race. If there's bills in Springfield that have to do with, obviously the county board, but your office that you think that we should get behind, maybe be prepared to send those to us. We'll get them on the agenda for executive this month, and then maybe come in and talk about it a little bit, because then that committee can put it on our agenda, put it in front of our legislators and lobbyists, and throw our shoulder into it.
and as I said before, it will certainly help to have members of the county board who are pushing for the same things instead of just hearing it from the sheriffs or the chiefs of police. Obviously members of the general public. I mean, they're certainly welcome to fill out a witness slip, do whatever. But sometimes when you hear from the same people over and over and over again, it kind of goes in one ear, not the other. So hearing from prominent members of the board, you guys as part of the Criminal Justice Committee would help significantly. So I met with Chief Judge Kramer yesterday, and I haven't, I'm kind of blindsiding Tom here a little bit, but it's a good thing. It's a good thing. I know that our docket is full of individuals who have a lot of community service. And we have a lot of areas in the county that need cleaning up. Yes. And so we are exploring options for being able to not only supervise those who are in our custody who may have community service, but also those who are not in custody who may be under supervision of probation, and going out and helping to clean up our community in different areas that need it. In years past, the city of Kankakee had a CSO, thank you, and he or she took the inmates out and they cleaned up and did odd jobs throughout the county that needed cleaning up, and I think, or throughout the city rather, but we would like to do it countywide and concentrate on areas that truly need it and make our county I don't want to say make our county clean again, but that would not be good. But clean up our. Sorry, Mr. Hunter. But you know, it gives them something to do. It gets them off our court docket once their community service is done, and may even ease up a little bit of Tom's caseload as well. So, it's just a thought. That, and I did have the conversation with Judge Kramer, and he was all for it. So, good.
Tom, come up to the mic, please.
No, we've had this discussion in our office already. Back years ago, probably 10 years ago now, we did away with basically coordinating public service work hours, going out and coming in. The discussion with Judge Cunnington, traffic, was to bring that back into our office. We have a way to do it now. And we also have, like I said, a lot of cases that are transferred into our office from everywhere that have a lot of hours. So,
well, yeah, we can work together on that, so that'd be great. So yeah, that's.
So we're already talking about
Yep,
it.
yep. And then lastly, oh, Mr. Snipes has a question.
Mr. Snipes.
Just a question. In your endeavors to make this county aesthetically pleasing,
aesthetically pleasing.
You know,
that's awfully deep for me.
No, is there a? There is no like opposition to union saying you're taking our jobs or whatever.
So we have to be cautious. Yeah, we're cautious of what we do. Oh yeah, absolutely. We don't want to interfere with anything that's going to take away from labor that's doing work. Oh yeah, absolutely. That's taken into consideration.
Mr. Wheeler.
Just my mic was on, so I was like.
No, it's not. No, it's not.
It's always on. I guess.
And lastly, a reminder in case you haven't seen it, this week is National Telecommunicators Week. Our telecommunicators at CANCOM do an outstanding job. They're the first people that deal with the public when they call 911 or when they call the non-emergency number. And they not only, you know, do a great job keeping our community safe, they do a great job keeping our officers safe. Paramedics, police, fire, they do a great job. So if you get a chance, reach out to them and tell them thank you. So that's all I got.
Anything else for the sheriff? Thank you, sir.
Oh, thank you, guys.
Up next, the coroner, Mr. Gessner.
Dead on arrival.
We do have a Webster dictionary now.
That, did it go off?
Good morning, or is it good afternoon yet?
Good morning, sir.
How are you? Did you already okay or?
Yeah, we'll vote on it afterward.
Okay, just to go over my report, I don't have a lot here for you. I'll be out of here in a second here, but our calls, if you're looking at that particular sheet right now, we're down in the month of March, which is good. Autopsies are holding about where they're at, 8 to 9 per month. Other than that, I'll take any questions on that at all. It's kind of self-explanable. So,
any questions on Mr. Gessner's report? Mr. Lear.
There was a news media report that nationally suicides are down. Are we seeing that trend?
Basically, as we're starting now, we're seeing an upward hit on suicides right now. Also, too, the last thing is I'm always kind of a recorder. Repeat myself a lot on this, but on a serious side, our overdoses are still going up on us. We've hit this month here, which is not on here in April here. We've hit a number. These are people that have been off the stuff like heroin for a while, and they try it back again, and all of a sudden now fentanyl is back heavy on us. That's basically all we're seeing right now is fentanyl, which is a drug that's between 80 to 100 times more powerful than morphine itself. So. We're concerned about that. Still not able to get out to the public, which I would love to. I use the news media every once in a while. We keep our statistics of where we're at on our Facebook page. Other than that, that concerns me. It's sad when you talk to the family and the family tells you You know, they've been off of it for a while, and then they just get back on it, and what's out there right now is a mixture of heroin and fentanyl. But right now we're just seeing flat fentanyl. I'm working a little bit more with law enforcement and also with KMEG. I do say that our numbers of 16 cases right now, 2 pending. The average age is still at 42 years of age. The youngest is at 22. Oldest is at 69. 11 males, 5 females, 12 Caucasians, 4 African Americans, and basically everything is right around high school. From 9 to 12, we've had 6 education-wise. High school diploma 7, and associate degree 1, and bachelor degree 1. Excuse me, 1. So it doesn't seem like a lot, but that's a lot. We're right on the average age of going right back to 50 again. And 50 does, it's also every OD has to be autopsied, and that's pushes our levels up. And the toxicology, lately with the new different drugs that are coming out now, it costs us a little bit more money because it's really not on the trending right now. The M&S Labs, which is the #1 lab in the United States that we use, it's not on there. They have to go through a bunch of tests to try to find exactly what the amount is. So we're working hard on that. We're holding our budget down. We're doing pretty good with it. So other than that, I'll take any questions you have.
Any questions for Mr. Gessner? Mr. Wheeler.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, Bob, are you hearing anything about this whole medical examiner thing that pops up every couple of years? They want to make the coroners medical examiners, but yet there aren't enough medical examiners in the state. I'm just curious. Have you heard anything about that?
It's when you talked about, I'm going to send you our bills that we have, and one of those are that. It's really almost physically impossible to do that because Cook County has 12 MEs. We have 4 in this county right here. 2 that serve us and 2 that are part-time that we get. We're blessed to have that. But you go down the state there, they got to go to Indiana and all that stuff. It's a lot of money to travel. It would shut down my morgue to have to go probably to Cook County. You know, it's something you don't want to have. And I understand their point, but there are coroners out there that know their jobs and know what to do. And there's some of them that in any profession you run across that happens. You know, but I'm very we watch that bill quite heavily. There's only like 300 and some, I think 300 MEs in through the whole United States. So you figure that out, you'll have to move a lot. So years ago, we had to go to Grundy County when we didn't have the morgue on all of our accidentals and homicides. So, and that was costly to not only to us, the police departments, because they got to send their detectives or whoever. So it's quite, I'd love to talk on that in front of a lot of people. So.
Okay.
Any other questions for Mr. Gessner? Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Snipes.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the minutes, Circuit Clerk's Office, State's Attorney's Office, Public Defender's Office, Probation Office, Sheriff's Report, and the Coroner's Report. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Hess?
Aye.
Mr. Long?
Aye.
Mr. Lear? Aye. Mr. Snipes?
Aye.
Ms. Peters?
Aye.
Ms. Parker? Aye. Mr. Fairfield?
Aye.
Mr. Carrico?
Aye.
Mr. Eckhoff?
Aye.
Mr. Darrell Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Kirkstra? Mr. Hunter? Mr. Collins?
Aye.
Mr. Kenneth Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Wheeler?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Is there any old business to come before the committee, or any new business, pardon me, any new business to come before the committee? Any new business? Any old business to come before the committee? Any old business? Mr. Kirkstra?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we adjourn.
Ms. Peters?
I second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.